My name is Marcus. I am a total nerd when it comes to AI and technology. I pivoted at the end of last year to focus my services on mental health professionals and life coaches to be able to help them serve their audiences better. And a part of the strategy is that I wanted to teach these people how to use the software that I offer as a part of my toolkit and services to better leverage themselves on the internet and to get more results for their advertising and marketing budgets they are putting out. And this was right around the time that ChatGPT came out in November of last year. And so I had to create all of this coursework essentially to be able to give my students and give my clients the information that they need to market their business effectively. So I think I was probably one of the very first people to create a course with ChatGPT, because I'm not a marketing agency anymore. I provide a software solution that helps you put all the pieces that you need to market your business effectively online today in place. And so I don't care to give away my marketing secrets. You can have all the marketing secrets you want. If you want to pay me to learn about it, I'll tell you everything I know about it, because I give you the infrastructure that you need to put all this stuff in place. I offer a wide variety of solutions, from chatbots trained on your company data to complex prompt frameworks for ChatGPT and a whole other host of solutions, depending on what you're needing. I'm just going to start by saying, what are some common use cases for ChatGPT? Anything text related that you can think of is a perfect application for this. This is what's called a large language model, meaning that it is trained to generate language in text. Not only means language in the English dialect, but also multiple different dialects and languages. You can use it to translate things as well as understand and interpret information in other languages. ChatGPT 3.5 is the free version. That is the one that you can go online to chat.openai.com and access for free right now. The differences between that and the new one, GPT-4, are quite big, right? So ChatGPT 3.5 was trained on 175 billion parameters. That's billion with a B, that's a lot. ChatGPT 4 was trained on 1.6 trillion parameters. That is a huge number, way bigger than the original model. The difference between these two is that ChatGPT 4 is multimodal, meaning that it can take in and give out multiple different types of information. So that means it can understand images, it can understand audio, and it can understand text. Video is going to be coming very soon. The other big difference between this is that ChatGPT 4 has something called reinforcement learning with human feedback. Basically what that means in a simplified version is that if you think about grading a test as an English teacher, you're going to leave marks on the test to say this is the correct answer and this is the reason why it was correct. Basically what the team of researchers did at OpenAI is that they went in and they gave responses to ChatGPT's outputs and they graded them with that additional feedback. So when ChatGPT gave a response, it was given a score. This is a good output, this is a bad output. And then it was also given additional context and feedback. Here is why the output was good and here is why the output was bad. This is a stark difference between the previous model, which just had a scoring of this is a good output, this is a bad output, right? So that's why there is a big difference between GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. GPT 4 is capable of more complex reasoning and it's able to generate a more nuanced answer because of that feedback and that reinforcement learning.
I just want to add that you did mention that you were shocked that I wasn't using the 4.
Yes.
And I was like, well, why should I use it? I'm using the free one.
Yeah.
So I switched. It has blown me away what it's doing for me now. So
yes.
I have a question. Is
Yes.
there a difference between the Chat GPT and I'm using Chat AI? Is it the same thing?
No.
Okay.
So ChatGPT is the official language model from OpenAI. So what you will get is that, especially if you're on a phone, right, if you've got a mobile app,
Yep.
they didn't launch their mobile app until probably 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And everybody rushed to kind of get the mobile app real estate because every one of us can create a ChatGPT right now if we wanted to using their API. And an API, if you're not familiar with what an API is, it basically is just this tool that calls to OpenAI and says, let me use the language model, here's the request, here's the question, and you can build your own ChatGPT in an app using the API. So what people did, because OpenAI did not have a specific dedicated mobile app, they basically created all these different apps and they named them Chat AI, GPT AI, whatever it's going to be, to try to get traffic and people who did not know that OpenAI did not have their own app. Maybe it's someone like you who, I'm not sure if you're using the
I'm using
official
Chat AI. That's what I use on my phone and my computer.
Can you show it to me?
Yeah.
So there was this gold rush to create the first app or multiple apps and to kind of steal some market share. Yeah, that's not it.
Well, it's something.
It's using
cool.
it. So she's got what's called Chat AI.
It's definitely amazing.
What she's using is basically just what I described. Somebody built a mobile app and they used the OpenAI, the ChatGPT answer key basically. It's called an API. They're using the API to generate answers in that app. So you're getting the exact same thing, you're just not getting it from the original company. The official OpenAI ChatGPT app is white. It's white with a black logo on it. And that's where you're going to be able to get the advanced features, like the features that they just launched last week, which will allow you to talk to ChatGPT and have it respond to you in a voice. Like it will actually be a back and forth conversation. You will also have access, that app does not have access to the plugins, which are expanding the capabilities, and we'll talk about some of the plugins here in a minute, which expand the capabilities of ChatGPT. So this one is big, especially from Maria's groups. How accurate is ChatGPT in providing answers? So you should treat the information that comes out of ChatGPT with a very healthy dose of skepticism, the same amount or more, maybe not more, but the same amount as you would trust a mainstream media outlet, right? You should always be checking that information and never take it for surface level, right? As if it is truly accurate information. The same thing goes with ChatGPT. They've done a lot of work to kind of keep this model unbiased, and as the models have progressed over the years, they've gotten a lot better, especially with ChatGPT 4, in eliminating the bias across many different varieties and factors that are coming out of the answers. But you should still be sure to check the answer for validity and accuracy to make sure that you're getting true information. You never want to actually publish anything that comes out of ChatGPT without checking it for accuracy first. That's like a cardinal sin of generative AI, because these things will hallucinate and they will do it very often. So if you don't know what hallucinations are, hallucinations are when ChatGPT doesn't have an answer, but it wants to give you an answer with authority, right? So make sure that you are checking the validity of that information. A good example of ChatGPT hallucinating is there are something called token limits and context windows. A token is roughly 3/4 of a word. Depending on which AI model you're using, they tokenize words differently. Some will do one word is 1 token, 1 word is 2 tokens. A good average rule of thumb is 1 word equals 3/4, 1 token, 3/4 of a word. So if you have 10,000 tokens, you can put in roughly 7,500 words. So the token limit for ChatGPT 3.5 is 4,000 tokens. Meaning that you can put in like 1,500-ish words into your prompt here, right? You can put in 1,500 words if you're using ChatGPT 3.5 here, and then it has to have room to give you the response behind it. So it's 4,000 tokens in the input and the output. ChatGPT 4 has a few different token windows. It starts at 8,000 tokens and then it goes all the way up to 32,000 tokens, depending on your access level. If you're a developer, whatever else, you can't change it in the commercial in what we're seeing here. You can change that if you are using the API, which is something I mentioned earlier. They did recently add 16,000 character token limits to ChatGPT 3.5, and again, you can't do it here. It's through the API that you can have access to that. Token limits, that's an explanation on that. The context window, there's only so much information that it can retain at any one time in a thread. So I'll give you a really great example about this. As I was creating these courses, way back before ChatGPT 4 was even launched, I created an entire module, handouts, printouts, quizzes, questionnaires, all these different things in one thread. And then I said, all right, well, let me write a video script for this because I want to create a video training. And it wrote the video training, and I was at the end of my workday, and I was like, great, perfect. put it in there. 2 days later, when I went to go record the video, it was completely different than what was on my actual written material, because that stuff was at the top of the thread and the video script was at the bottom. And so while the information was relevant, because I was asking for information about how to create a course and how to write a landing page and all these things, it has that information in the training database, but it wasn't what I created earlier in the thread. So if you think about it as a window, and it slides down the further down the thread you go, and so if you're way down here, the window is here, and you want information at the top, it's not going to be able to give you that. And that is an example of a hallucination, because it's not the information that I wanted. It is good, accurate information, but it's not the information I was looking for specifically, because it was outside of that context window.
So back to your video. So did you go back and copy the information from the top of and then ask it to create a video?
This was back in January.
And how did you correct that?
I think that I think I ended up, so I had the text document fully finished. So the way that I did this is that I went through and I created the text document first in ChatGPT, and this was also before they had the history on the side as well. So like you had to do it and save your information. So I got what I was looking for each of the different modules, and I put it in a Word doc. And when I realized that the video scripts weren't correct, I just basically took the entire Word doc, copy and pasted it in there, and said, this is the training, create the video training for me. And so that's how I did that. So let's talk about creating and crafting effective prompts for ChatGPT. So what is the average interaction for those people who use ChatGPT in the room? What is the average interaction number that you have before you kind of give up on a thread? Is it 1, 2, 3, and then you go away? How many times do you go? You can just feel free to shout it out.
2.
2, okay?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So back and forths with ChatGPT. You ask it for a question, it gives you an answer. How many times do you do that before you move on?
Do you just accept the first answer?
Yeah, no,
Two or three.
no, 1
Two or
to
three.
3, I would say 3, probably.
Okay.
Maybe 10.
Anybody higher than that? What? How about you?
10-ish.
10? I had a conversation with another agency owner recently. Their average response was 27. Mine is probably 20 to 30, if not more. So what people don't realize is that you need to treat this as the smartest assistant that you've ever had. But what happens when you get an assistant? You need to tell them what you need to train them on how you work, what your business does, things like that. You need to give it context in the context of the thread for it to understand and give you better outputs. So the more information that you give it, the better output it's going to be. This is I think I need to kind of give a little bit more background in terms of what ChatGPT is. It is a very, very sophisticated word prediction engine. So if you think about the word prediction on your phone, right, the predictive text of what the next word's going to be, it's like that on a million times of steroids, right? So it is very, very powerful when it comes to predicting the next sequence of words in an event. So when it comes to giving it more context, the more context you give it surrounding the information, the better it is going to be able to locate that information in its training database and to give you a better answer out of it. If you start a new thread here, it's not going to remember anything that you put in to the previous thread. It does not remember that. Every time you open a new chat, it's a complete blank slate. So you can teach it some information. Let's just say that Maria has some proprietary information that is hers and that only she knows to be true, or her IP, intellectual property. She can put that into the thread and say, this is fact, this is true. You are to learn this information and we're gonna create more stuff out of this. So it will learn within the thread, but as soon as she opens up a new thread, it's gone. So don't think that it's going to carry over into any of the other threads that you take, that you create moving forward.
Look, I feel like mine recognizes my style of writing now. I really do. I feel like it.
Can you give me a little more context behind that?
Well, usually I have my prompts, like, and I'm very specific, like you said, get very specific on what I want and the information. And I also let it know that it is my original work, because it needs to know that, that when you're putting something original in it, I think you need to let it know that. But then I'll go to another chat and do a whole nother project, and my style of how I would word it comes out the same way. I know you say it's not, but I think it does, doesn't
You
it?
filled in your custom instructions?
I have custom instructions, yes.
That's why.
That's why,
That's
oh.
why. So
In my
custom
custom
instructions, just what she's talking about. Everybody
Good.
wants to have ChatGPT trained on their own business, right? That's kind of like the holy grail. We wanted to just instinctively know what our business does and how we operate. OpenAI knows that now, and they've added something called custom instructions. This is an area in which you can give information to ChatGPT about your business, so you don't have to train it on your writing style. You don't have to teach it how you create things or word things or write things every single time. It has this custom instructions already put in. You can give it background information about your business, how you go to market, how you serve people, the types of people that you serve, all the different things about your product, and it's going to remember that. And then you can also give it examples of how you would like it to respond. So a good use case for this is for creating social posts, right? If you have a certain way that you create Facebook posts or Instagram posts, you can give that example in this second half of the custom instructions. So you don't have to spend as much time fine-tuning the information that comes out of this. It's pretty easy to build your own. You can use a tool like Zapier or Make.com if any of you are familiar with that. Who's familiar with those?
Make.com?
Yeah, Make.com used to be called Integromat. Essentially, it's an automation tool, and they have the ability to store information, and you can link it to ChatGPT and pull that information. So, for example, I create content for social media, and I do a lot of my thinking and professional development in the morning, early in the morning, and by the time that I get to my desk an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I have kind of forgotten what I wanted and I don't really remember. So I designed an automation that I can record a voice note and drop it in a Google Drive. It will transcribe it for me, and it will then format it into a Facebook post, an Instagram post, LinkedIn post, and an email newsletter. And I've set up parameters of how these things look like, how I want them to come out in terms of their form and structure. And it will do all of that for me off of that voice note and will deliver it to my email inbox roughly like 5 minutes later. How can we use ChatGPT in a professional setting? It says such as job interviews, which we'll talk about that, but standardizing information output. So let's just say a couple of common use cases. You guys are in business, right? You have meetings all the time, and chances are somebody has to send out an action item or a report after that meeting. Mm-hmm. And it takes up 15 to 20 minutes of their time, transcribing that and sending it out to the different people. You can put in the entire transcript. You can record the meeting and put in the entire transcript. Have a preset prompt of how you want the meeting notes to be taken down or put out in a final format. In a prompt and say, here ChatGPT, here is the meeting transcript from today. Please turn it into our Scrum meeting notes and email it to me. So you can set that automation up through a tool like Make or Zapier, and you have saved yourself 20 minutes worth of work having to transcribe those meeting notes and assign action items for it.
So this is going back a little bit more towards the basics. So you're talking about interactions and going back and forth.
Yep.
When you ask the original prompt, does it need to have all the information? Or
No.
does it always
No.
narrow down, or can I expand it out?
That's a great, let's get into some of these actual prompts, because I have some examples here. The way that I like to explain this to people is if you have an objective in like if you're looking to do something, right? So let's say you want to transform these meeting notes, or you want to write an email, you want to create a course, whatever it's going to be. If you start the interaction by saying, ChatGPT, we are going to create a blog post. Here is what I want to do. I want to do this, this, and this. What do you need from me? That question right there is where you should start if you've never used ChatGPT before, or if you feel like you're a beginner. Because what it's going to do, it is going to give you some context behind the information that you need to give it. So in the blog post example, we're going to create a blog post. I want to write about AI in business use cases. What do you need from me? It's going to say, well, what type of business use cases do you want to talk about? What type of blog post do you want to write? How long do you want the blog post to be? Is there any relevant links that you want to include in the blog post? Is there any other information that you want to include? It's going to ask you all of these different questions, And then you have the opportunity to provide the follow-up information and the answers to those questions. And it's going to say, okay, based off of what you've given me, here is the answer. Does this sound right? And you say, yep, sounds great, let's move on. Or, nope, that's not quite what I wanted, let's move this and let's change this and let's give it a little bit of a different perspective, right? So you have the opportunity, when we talk about the iterative prompt creation process, if you start with something simple and you ask, what do you need from me, or what else could be improved here, you are giving the model the time to think and give you a better response based off of what you are looking for. Yes, sir?
How does it know what questions to ask you about something you're wanting?
It's based off of its training data, right? So they trained ChatGPT to be a very, very, very intelligent assistant, but spread across a wide variety of different industries and topics and verticals. So there's a lot of information that it knows. You need to, basically, you are trying to get it to narrow its focus into a specific area. Because if you're not being specific and clear with what you're looking for, it's trying to like pull all this information right into the prompt. But if you say, I want to talk about business generation, I want to talk about lead magnets, and I want to talk about marketing, it now knows, all right, these are the swim lanes that I need to be in. Let's talk about this, and let's follow up with more information about that. Do you have a question?
I do. Actually, does it know specific locations or businesses? For example, just say I wanted to put in there and say, please write me a 2-paragraph about the Largo Golf Course.
Yes. So it does. So ChatGPT is trained off of the entire internet, mostly, up until Q3 of 2021. So that is its cutoff date of training. If your business, if the Largo Golf Course was on the internet before Q3 of 2021, it will know that. Anything after that, you have to use a plugin or a web browser to be able to go and grab live internet data to get that information.
Are they gonna expand that past
Yes.
2021? Okay.
Yes, so they actually just
Because that's what I'm
announced.
finding, when
Yeah.
I'm trying to write my magazine about specific businesses, it does tell me about that 2021.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'll show you how to get around that. One of the things that they did announce recently was they have announced the GPT web crawler, which essentially allows businesses, because we know, we see the writing on the wall, that this is going to change the way that we search, right? We're going away from question-based to answer-based, right? I hate going to Google and saying, how do I do this? And it's freaking 10 links that are all SEO spam to get them to rank so they can put ad stuff on there. It's annoying, right? And so we're changing the way the industry is going to change. And even Google is doing it now with their own generative search stuff. OpenAI has released this tool for businesses to be able to put their information in to the system to be indexed into the training data. And you can opt out of it if you do not want to, Maria. You can opt out of that training if you want to. Privacy is a big thing, right? We're all concerned about our data privacy. And one of the top things that most people are concerned about that are leading this field is, how do we protect data rights and data privacy? Because if you've ever made a post on Reddit, and if you're a prolific Reddit user, and maybe you are like the majority of Reddit users, I don't know who uses Reddit in this room, but kind of the thing about Reddit is that your friends and your people that you know in real life don't know your Reddit name, so you can kind of post whatever you want to, right? If you're a prolific Reddit user, it's in ChatGPT already, and you made that post before Q3 2021. So it just really depends how much of your intellectual property do you want to be put into this. Speaking of intellectual property, right? So like I'm working on a tool for a nonprofit for mental health and childhood trauma, and we don't want this information to be put into ChatGPT with all the specific proprietary intellectual property that we have. And so like that's a big deal. So that's an example of something that you don't want to be crawled. If you had that on a gated access behind your website, but it wasn't like super locked down or anything like that, maybe like behind a membership area, those bots can go and crawl that information, and it's being put into the training database for ChatGPT and OpenAI. And so now anybody using this tool, if they know what questions to ask, can get that information if you haven't locked it down enough. So that's a use case. If you don't want to publish that, or if you don't want that to be going into the training database, you opt out of it. One thing to keep in mind, if you're using this tool, you need to know that any information that you put into this text box, and what we're looking right here, will be sent back to OpenAI to be included in training data in the future. So do not put anything information that you do not want to be shared or publicly regurgitated in some form or fashion into this chatbot. You have an option in the settings over here to go to settings and beta, and you can turn off the data controls. So if you toggle this off, none of this that you now put into this chatbot will be sent back to OpenAI. It will not save in your account. So you can see over here, I can't access my history anymore because I turned that data control off. So if you're working on something that you feel is intellectual property and you want it to be protected, but you do need to use ChatGPT, you can turn this, this toggle on and it will not save any of the information that you put in there. And so you need to also understand that you can't go back to that. So if you're going to work on something, you got to do it in that one thread in one sitting, because you're not going to be able to come back to it if you have this settings and beta turned off to not send the data back to OpenAI. Another thing behind this is if you're using the API, so any of the tools that I've built or am using, that information also does not get sent back to OpenAI to be used in training data in the future. They will keep it in retention for 30 days to monitor for misuse and moderation purposes, but after that, they'll wipe it. So it's not going to be sent back to be used in future training data. Perfect time, let's talk about some plugins. So plugins.
Are plugins only with the paid version?
Plugins are only with the paid version, yes. So that is another use case for the $20. So these are the different tools within ChatGPT 4. So you have the standard default model. Browse with Bing is something that they just re-released. They had it open earlier in the year. This is their official web browsing plugin. It uses Bing as the search engine to go and aggregate search sources. It'll search out links, multiple different links, and then it will combine and assimilate the answer into one answer across many different varieties of sources of information, and it will give you the response with the links to go directly to the source. So it'll consider, 10 or 15 different links, pull the information from those links to answer your question with its regular training data, and it will provide you with the answers and the links and the sources so you can go and look at those sources specifically and understand to make sure that that information is true. Advanced data analysis allows you to upload files like CSVs, Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, Word documents. So long documents, if you consider this thing can take up to like 200 pages of a book if you're using the advanced data analysis tool. So if you want to rewrite a book or use your first book as an example, and you want to write a sequel for it, you can load that in and it will go and read the information from the document that you upload, and then it will allow you to interact with that document afterwards. One thing to know about the advanced data analysis, it's called Code Interpreter, is what its original name was. It only keeps that information for one session. So if you upload something and you want to come back to it in a couple of days, it's not going to be there. So just keep in mind that it's not going to store that information long term. Again, if you want to do something, make sure you're trying to do it in one sitting, and so it doesn't time out on you. They just gave the ability for you to upload an image to ChatGPT, and it will look at and understand the image and give you feedback on that image. So you can upload a screenshot of your competitor or your website or whatever. This is the landing page that I have. And I said, I want to create a flyer. Help me turn this into an event flyer. Based on the information that you provided, here's a suggested layout for an event flyer. It gave me all the information from the website. So aside from that, you can give it a link and say, please go crawl this website and help me create a website similar to this one. And if it's your competitor's website, you can say, here's my competitor's website. Please help me create one based off of this information. Here's what I do differently. Here's my points, here's my unique selling proposition, here's my prices, my audience, all that stuff. And then you can go, it'll create the website for you. So there's a lot of different use cases with this. One of the cool things is, this is on the paid version only, and everybody should have it now. It should be finalized and finished rolling out in the next week or so. But if you upgrade to the paid version of this, you can take a picture of your bike or whatever, something that you're working on, and say, I'm trying to fix this. How do I fix it? And it will look at it and it will understand what you're looking for, and it will give you instructions on how to fix it.
So with that event flyer and a website, it's going to give you the text-based code or the text for the flyer. So if I want to turn it into a graphic,
You can ask it to turn into an actual coded website.
Got it, through ChatGPT.
But it won't make the graphics for us.
It will actually, if you give it the right instruction. So it's not gonna be like a replacement for a graphic designer. If you ask it to create an icon or an SVG image, which is a type of image, it can do that.
This chat can do that?
It can create, through the various use of the different plugins, it can create flowcharts. So one of the content creators I follow on TikTok talked about using one of the plugins, which was a flowchart generator and a diagram generator, to input the transcript of a YouTube video and translate it into a hierarchy of points that were made in the video. So the main topic, the subtopics, and the individual points for each of those subtopics, and it turned it into a flowchart and a diagram. So it's close. So it's a good point to describe. So there are text language models, large language models, and there are image generation models. There are also video and audio generation models. So ChatGPT is a language model. ChatGPT 4 is multimodal, meaning that it can create other things, but it has to be paired with an image model to do the image generation. The difference between this and going to ChatGPT and saying, hey ChatGPT, can you please write me a 1,500 word blog post on emergency plumbing in St. Petersburg, Florida? It's gonna try, it'll give you about 600 words because it's trying to give you a whole bunch of information. Instead, you wanna go step by step and break it down, give it additional information to help fully flesh out each individual section to give you a much longer blog post that is more quality information rather than just trying to have it do one post at a time, just in one shot.